I thought $1 billion could buy me absolute security, until my private security team confirmed that the silent panic button inside my locked penthouse had just been cut from the outside. My name is Arthur Sterling III. 3 days ago, I was a broken data entry guy who exposed his cheating wife, inherited a $1.2 billion trust fund, and left her with absolutely nothing. It felt like the ultimate victory. But last night, the game completely changed. You see, when my lawyers confiscated the hidden GPS tracker from my favorite leather jacket, I assumed my ex-wife Jessica had planted it 3 months ago to hide her affair with Mark. But when my tech team pulled the historical logs from the manufacturer's server, a chilling discovery made my blood run entirely cold. The tracker hadn't been active for 3 months. It had been pinging my location every single second for 4 consecutive years. Long before I ever met Jessica. Long before I even rented that cheap Chicago apartment. I was sitting in my brand new, heavily guarded luxury penthouse when the realization hit me like a physical blow. Jessica was just a parasite, but she wasn't the mastermind. Someone else had woven that tracking device into my lining. Someone else knew exactly who I was from the very beginning. And then, the atmosphere in my empty penthouse became suffocating. From the depths of my walk-in bedroom closet, a faint, familiar text notification buzzed. I froze. My heart hammered against my ribs, a fatal anxiety taking over my body. I don't keep a phone in that closet. Nobody should have been in there. I gripped the solid brass handle of my bedroom door, glancing nervously at the security monitor on the wall. The hallway was clear. The biometric locks were green. Step by step, I approached the closet. Every shadow felt like a psychological trap. I threw the closet doors open. Hanging there were rows of custom-tailored Italian suits, the first luxury items I'd bought with my inherited wealth. But sitting directly on the floor, right in the center of the room, was a cheap, cracked burner phone. The screen was glowing in the dark. I picked it up with shaking hands. There was a single unread message from an unknown encrypted number. It read, "Beautiful suits, Arthur. Red fits you better than that old leather jacket. Welcome to the real game." A cold shiver ran down my spine. I sprinted to the window, looking down 30 stories at the gridlock traffic of the city. Someone was watching me right now. They knew what I was wearing. They knew I'd uncovered the tracker. I didn't waste time. I dialed Marcus, my family's chief of private security. Marcus is an ex-military operative. He doesn't scare easily. "Marcus," I whispered, my voice tight. Someone bypassed the penthouse security. They left a phone inside my secure closet. There was a long, terrifying silence on the other end of the line. When Marcus finally spoke, his voice was hollow. "Mr. Sterling, that's impossible. My men are stationed at the main elevator and the service stairs. Nobody has entered your floor. But you need to listen to me very carefully. We just ran a background check on the registration of that GPS tracker. The billing account attached to it wasn't opened under a fake name." "Whose name is it?" I demanded, an unexplained dread sinking into my stomach. "The account belongs to a corporate entity called Janus Holdings," Marcus said, his breath catching. "Mr. Sterling, Janus Holdings was entirely funded by your grandfather, Arthur Sterling Sr. The account was deactivated the day he passed away 5 years ago. But the tracking server was kept alive by a private trustee. My grandfather, the man who set up the $1.2 billion trust fund to protect me from greedy people, was the one tracking my every move. It made no sense. Why would he force me to live like a beggar for 5 years while secretly monitoring my location from the grave? Suddenly the burner phone in my hand buzzed again. Another text. Grandpa loved his rules, didn't he? But he forgot one thing. Secrets never stay buried in Chicago. If you want the truth about why you were really forced into hiding, go to the old warehouse on 14th Street. Come alone, or the next text goes to the press, and your grandfather's real legacy ends. I was trapped in a financial gridlock of information. My mind was racing. I could stay in my guarded fortress and wonder forever, or I could walk directly into what felt like a fatal trap. I grabbed my coat. I didn't tell Marcus. I didn't call my lawyers. I slipped past the security team using the service elevator, stepping out into the freezing Chicago rain. The old warehouse on 14th Street was the abandoned brick building that used to belong to my grandfather's logistics company in the 90s. It was dark, covered in graffiti, and surrounded by decaying fences. I pushed the heavy iron door open. It creaked loudly, the sound echoing through the vast, empty space. Dust danced in the beam of my flashlight. "I'm here," I shouted, my voice bouncing off the concrete walls. "Show yourself!" No answer. Only the chilling sound of water dripping from the ceiling. I walked deeper into the darkness, my flashlight glancing off old wooden crates. Then, at the far end of the room, I saw it. A single spotlight snapped on, blinding me for a second. Underneath the light sat a metal chair, and on that chair was a thick manila folder labeled Sterling Trust, Phase 2. I approached the chair, every instinct telling me to run. I opened the folder. Inside were pages of financial documents, medical records, and photographs. As I flipped through the pages, my hands began to tremble violently. The first document was a marriage certificate dated 5 years ago. It wasn't my marriage certificate with Jessica. It was a marriage certificate between my grandfather and a woman whose face was completely blacked out in the photographs. The second document was a legal clause added to the trust fund just 48 hours before my grandfather passed away. The clause stated that if I failed the test, if I married a gold digger who cheated on me, the entire $1.2 billion wouldn't stay with me. It would automatically revert to his secret surviving spouse. Jessica didn't find Mark by accident. Mark didn't target her by chance. They were set up. Someone had orchestrated my wife's infidelity from the shadows. Someone wanted me to catch her. Someone wanted our marriage to fail on my 30th birthday so they could strip me of my inheritance legally. Jessica wasn't the player. She was just a pawn in a multi-billion-dollar execution of greed. A soft, slow clapping sound suddenly echoed from the dark corners of the warehouse. "You always were the smart one, Arthur," a voice whispered from the shadows. It was a woman's voice, smooth, cold, and horrifyingly familiar. A figure stepped into the light. My breath caught in my throat. My body went completely numb as I stared at the face of the person standing before me. It's been 3 days since I thought I won everything. But as I stand in this freezing warehouse, looking into the eyes of the person who built my psychological trap, I realize the real nightmare has just begun. The woman smiling at me was Eleanor, Jessica's mother, and she was holding the master remote to my grandfather's multi-billion-dollar empire. "Eleanor?" I gasped, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. You? You married my grandfather?" "Oh, Arthur," Eleanor smiled, stepping closer, her expensive heels clicking sharply against the cold concrete floor. "Your grandfather was a brilliant businessman, but a very lonely man after your grandmother passed. It took me less than a year to convince him that his own family was rotting from the inside. And look at you. You proved him right." "You set Jessica up," I said, my fists clenching until my knuckles turned white. "You forced your own daughter to betray me?" Eleanor let out a sharp, mocking laugh that sent chills straight down my spine. "Forced her? Please. Jessica didn't need any forcing. She is just like her father, greedy, short-sighted, and incredibly stupid. She truly believed she was just having a scandalous affair with Mark. She had no idea that I was the one paying Mark to target her. She had no idea that by hurting you, she was signing away her own financial future." My mind rushed back to the past 3 days. The satisfaction I felt when I threw Jessica out of my life with nothing. It wasn't my victory. It was Eleanor's plan. I was the weapon she used to destroy her own daughter, just so she could trigger the clause in the Sterling Trust. "But you made one critical mistake, Arthur," Eleanor whispered, her eyes locking onto mine with a predatory glint. "You exposed Jessica, which triggered the clause. The $1.2 billion officially belongs to Janus Holdings now. To me. But my lawyers noticed something very interesting in your bank transfers yesterday. You moved $100 million into an unlisted offshore account before the trust was frozen. Where is the $100 million, Arthur?" she demanded, her voice losing its warmth, turning razor sharp. "Your grandfather left a final hidden mandate. If you reveal the secret of that $100 million, the entire empire collapses into federal liquidation. Nobody gets a dime. Tell me where it is, or you won't leave this warehouse alive." I stood there under the dim spotlight, trapped between a multi-billion-dollar execution of greed and my own survival. But as Eleanor stared at me, waiting for me to break, a slow smile began to form on my face. The fear that had taken over my body suddenly vanished. "You think you've won, Eleanor?" I said, my voice echoing with a confidence that made her freeze. "You spent 5 years tracking my jacket, monitoring my apartment, and engineering my marriage. You think you know everything about the Sterling family." I reached into my pocket. Eleanor immediately took a step back, her hand moving toward her coat pocket as if she had a weapon. But I didn't pull out a gun. I pulled out the cheap, cracked burner phone that had been left in my closet. "Did you really think I didn't tell Marcus before I came here?" I asked, holding up the phone. The screen wasn't dark anymore. It showed a live, ongoing audio transmission. "I didn't use my phone, Eleanor. I used the very network your trustees kept alive. Marcus has been listening to every single word you just said. My legal team already has a copy of that marriage certificate, and more importantly, they have your confession." Eleanor's face drained of color. The confidence in her eyes shattered into pure panic. You're bluffing! The signal jammer is active!" "This burner phone doesn't run on standard cellular data, Eleanor. My grandfather built Janus Holdings server on an old military satellite frequency." Your jammer can't touch it, I said, taking a step toward her now. The tables had turned. And about that $100 million secret? It wasn't my grandfather's money. It was mine. Money I made while living like a beggar in that cheap Chicago apartment, hiding from your trackers. Outside the warehouse, the faint, distant wail of police sirens began to cut through the sound of the freezing rain. Eleanor looked at the iron door, then back at me, realizing her multi-billion-dollar trap had just become her own cage. "This isn't over, Arthur," she hissed, backing away into the shadows of the warehouse. "You don't know what your grandfather was truly hiding." As the sirens grew louder, I looked down at the manila folder in my hands. I had saved my fortune, and I had exposed the mastermind. But as I flipped to the very last page of the document, a final handwritten note from my grandfather caught my eye. It read, "Arthur, if you are reading this, it means Eleanor has found you, but she is not the greatest threat. Look behind the curtain of Janus Holdings." My blood ran cold once again. Eleanor was running from the police, but she was right about one thing. The real nightmare was just beginning. Who was really behind Janus Holdings? I thought my wife's betrayal was the end of the story. Instead, it opened a door to a conspiracy larger than I could have ever imagined. The $100 million is safe for now, but the secrets of the Sterling family are far from buried. What do you think my grandfather was actually hiding? Is Eleanor working alone, or is someone else controlling her from the dark? Drop your theories in the comments below. I read every single one of them. If you want to see part 3 and find out what happens next, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss the final reveal. The real game has just begun.